The horrors of Syria's war have devastating consequences. On December 19th, a gunman shot and killed Russia's ambassador to Turkey in a heinous act of misguided political retribution. And Russia was quick to blame Western media for the assassination. One parliament member even tweeted, "The hysteria around Aleppo raised by the Western media has consequences." But you know what also has consequences? The bombs that Syrian and Russian fighter jets drop, killing countless innocent civilians that have destroyed entire neighborhoods in Aleppo and that leave children buried beneath the rubble. But sure, why not? Blame the media. That's what politicians do to distract from their failures, right? The so-called media hysteria serves only as a scapegoat to conveniently deflect any attention from Russia's own complicity in the carnage that has forced half the country's population to escape and killed so many people that the UN simply stopped counting when the number reached 500,000. It also distracts from the fact that the assassin committed this murder in a maniacal, twisted attempt at revenge, aiming to remind the world of Russia's role in the bloodbath. Since the attack, pundits and politicians have speculated about the effect this will have on Russia and Turkey's fragile relationship, and the supposed ceasefire they helped broker in Aleppo, something the US didn't even know about until it was over. The attack seems to be an act of revenge, a desperate attempt to force accountability from a power that answers to no one. That lack of accountability and justice to end the war is the international community's greatest failure when it comes to Syria. And while we watch, the catastrophe in Syria only gets worse, with ripple effects across the globe. This is what happens when the world forgets an entire country, except when a heartbreaking photograph of a suffering child goes viral, and for just a brief moment reminds us all of the human cost of war. This is what happens when Russia kills more than 2,500 civilians, including 200 children and 28 medics in just 1 year alone, which is more than ISIS has killed. This is what happens when nearly 6 years since the war began, the West is as impotent as ever, unable and unwilling to protect the Syrian people, still failing to take any concrete action even after Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons against civilians, crossing a red line Obama promised would bring military action that never materialized. We often ask, what are the consequences of Aleppo, of the war in Syria in general? Well, it would hardly be a stretch of the imagination to assume that this young man, who would have been 16 when the war began almost 6 years ago, witnessed his country being pulled into the seemingly endless conflict in Syria, and simply lost hope and his wits, watching as hundreds of thousands are killed without any accountability or consequence, as 3 million refugees flood into his country. The most dangerous thing in the world is a young man who's lost all hope, a reality that's all too common when it comes to the region. To most of the world, Syria is a story of unmeasurable war and destruction that's far enough away that we can be sad and affected without it interrupting our daily lives. But for the millions in the region who see little difference between them and those slaughtered in Syria, surely they can relate to what Michelle Obama told Oprah this week.
Now we're feeling what not having hope feels like.
For as long as the lack of accountability and chaos persists, this cycle of violence and desperation will only continue.